A common practice in gaming industry is taking mechanics that work in one genre and trying them out in different one, with various degrees of success. One that I never understood that seems to be more and more popular is taking RPG mechanics and putting them in first-person shooters. These mechanics include things like leveling systems, damage numbers, level-gated enemies and weapons that also come with a lot of useless bloat and grinding. Games like Wolfenstein Youngblood, Far Cry New Dawn, or even Fallout 76 suffer from it. And this isn't happening just in FPS games. There is also Assassin's Creed Origins and Odyssey that had some problematic mechanics, and I'm sure there are plenty more I didn't play or forgot about. Even though it is less common now than it was a year ago, I'm still very passionate about this, and my hatred for these mechanics cannot be quenched until I'll talk about them. So let's start with a game that was my main inspiration for this video. Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Latest entries in this never-ending series introduced leveling systems that affect everything, from exploration to core gameplay mechanics. I generally don't have a problem with levels or earning experience to unlock skills, but there are some things I didn't like here. My personal biggest problem was the way it changed assassinations. In older games you could just sneak up behind anyone and kill them in one hit, because you are, well, an assassin. This made being stealthy fun, and game rewarded you for being careful and using environments to your advantage, instead of rushing headfirst into battle. In Odyssey, your sneak attack has certain damage that is calculated based on your level, skills and mostly equipment. So now, unless you have gear specifically geared towards assassination, you can't kill everyone with stealth kill in an Assassin's Creed game. Outside of basic runs, who you can still one-shot most of time, you're just gonna take maybe like half of HP from anyone who is above them. Now I know that even in previous games there were some enemies that you couldn't kill with Hidden Blade, but most of them were bosses or special encounters. Here, in every single camp, there is a commander that you just can't kill stealthily. This restricts the way I play, since I always have to keep the boss as the last enemy, because if I attack him sooner, I'm just gonna chip away his HP, alert the camp, and my stealth adventure is over. Even if I do that, I still can't one-shot him, and I'm forced into combat, which is exact opposite of what I'm trying to do. Now if there was just one type of this enemy, it wouldn't be that bad, but even they have their own levels. You have captains, commanders and polemarchs, each one having bigger health than previous one. Forts also have multiple commanders or captains, which means you can't even leave that one big guy as last boss. This also prevents me from using strictly stealth equipment, because even with it, I can't be sure if I will one-shot everyone, and getting into combat in a gear that is suited for something totally different is not fun. I also did a test where I tried to put my best stealth gear on, and I still couldn't one-shot most of commanders. Some might argue that this was done so that the game is more challenging for stealth players, and also so they just don't waltz their way through every camp. But I would argue that playing stealthily is not that easy, and it usually takes a lot of preparation and thinking, so it is only natural that I want to be rewarded for that. Even more so with this new combat system, that is fun, but still easier than stealth. I can just jump into middle of enemy swarm and kill them with ease, even on harder difficulties. It is a shame, because there are some cool abilities that you can use with a stealth character that makes this type of gameplay rewarding and fun to try out. When I went to get some footage for this video, I did a lot more forts than I originally wanted to, because they have great design and are, like I said, fun to explore and make your way through, but unfortunately you can't play them as you want. Even these stealth abilities have their problems, because you can't see what damage they do on an enemy until you use them, so you never know if you're gonna kill a captain or not. I heard they changed it up in Valhalla, so I'm looking forward to trying it out. This leveling system also sucks in other parts of gameplay. For example, exploration. Each region has its recommended level, and until you are at least 3 levels within that, any exploring you will do will be a lot harder due to enemies that outrank you. Some people might think that, oh, well, it's just a bigger challenge then, just defeat them and move on. But no, it's not that easy. If an enemy is few levels above you, they do absurd amounts of damage, while you do as much as if you were slapping them with a dildo instead of sword. Because of course, damage is based on your level. So even if you are the most skilled swordsman in whole Greece, with a set of legendary armor ripped from Poseidon's arms, you can't do shit against a basic Thug that has a rusty sword and a pair of sandals, because he is in a location with a higher base level. Now I understand if an important story location is barred off like that, you don't want noisy players ruining your big moments. But why should a random island that is like 5 minutes away from my tutorial area be riddled with bandits that are 10 times stronger than I am? There are better ways of making areas harder without level gating. If you don't use any sort of levels at all, a classic tactic is to just pour more dudes into said location, and if player is good enough to defeat them, then sure, let him explore the place. He earned it. I would also like to see more logic in world's layout. Right now it seems like each part of map has its difficulty assigned randomly, so there could be regions next to each other that you can't explore simply because the level is too high. It would have been better if you start out either at one end or in the middle and difficulty spreads out from your starting point. So let's say you start at left side of map, the harder spots should be on his right side, or if you start out in the middle, biggest challenge could await you in the map's corners and so on. RPG systems have an impact on combat as well. Outside of previously mentioned problems with high level enemies, I don't like that enemies have levels in general. Granted, you need to be at least a bit skilled in Odyssey, especially if you play on hard and above, but you can still overcome any stronger enemy by simply leveling yourself up. You have a pretty big skill set to play with, and there are tons of ways to approach combat, so it would have been cool if enemies learned new tricks, or you got introduced to some new types as you explore the world, instead of just increasing their health pool and damage. I know that this is a problem in many games, not just Odyssey. Hell, you can grind even in Dark Souls. The difference is that unless you go really overboard with overleveling up, you can't just hack and slash your way through bosses in it. I like new direction that Origins was going for, but I feel like developers went a bit overboard with it in Odyssey. Everything I complained about was in Origins as well, but it was on smaller scale, so it was bearable. In Odyssey, everything is bigger, including its problems. I understand why they did it though. RPG systems are one of easiest ways to keep players engaged. Gamers love seeing little numbers change to big numbers, and more grind means more playtime, and more players that will play the game, and potentially buy some time savers or DLCs. Because, yeah, you can buy experience boosters and resources here, which of course is a scummy tactic that no one likes, and I don't feel like I need to talk about it. I get it, but that doesn't mean I like it. Still, Odyssey was an enjoyable experience for me. I spent around 60 hours in it. It has great atmosphere, beautiful visuals, fun gameplay and some good quests, so it's a shame that some parts of it don't work as much as they could. I wonder if Valhalla suffers from same problems. I didn't play it yet, but it seems promising, so we'll see. Another thing I don't like is experimenting with established franchises by inserting popular trends in them and seeing how it goes. Lately I saw this happen to two well-known FPS juggernauts. I'm talking about Wolfenstein and Far Cry. The newest entries, Youngblood and New Dawn, both suffer from similar problems. Let's start with Far Cry New Dawn. Developers decided to include tiers system, where enemies were divided into 4 tiers, each one stronger than previous one. With that also came tiers for weapons, again from tier 1 to tier 4, and you need a weapon from same tier as enemy if you want to stand a chance. So if you had weapons from tier 2, you could only fight enemies from tiers 1 and 2 and not 3 and 4. Or you could, but they would take a lot more bullets to kill. On top of that, everyone has this little health bar above their head, and your weapon's damage is calculated and displayed just like in Borderlands. Now all of this might have been a cool feature if they also built the rest of the game around it. Problem is that everything else is the same old Far Cry. None of the systems saw any changes, shooting is still the same, except this time enemies take more damage to kill, and you can see numbers above their heads. Same system for stealth, except this time you actually can't sneak kill unless you have a perk that allows you to kill enemies of higher tiers. Basically this new RPG system doesn't add anything to the game, it is more distracting than useful, and if you removed it, nothing would change. Not even a single game mechanic would be lost. Well, maybe one. You know which one. The grind. While it is true that in previous Far Cries you also had to kill animals for bigger wallet, at least there it was just a small part of gameplay and actually fun. Here Ubisoft decided to introduce the crafting system, which you need to use if you want to make higher tier weapons. And these weapons cost resources that you can get by exploring, completing missions, or you can buy them. Yeah, just give Uncle Ubisoft some of your shekels and he will be glad to give you anything you need. And you're gonna need a lot, because weapons are not cheap and each tier is more expensive. So once again an RPG system that is tackled on a famous franchise that brings nothing to the table and is only there so you would skip the unnecessary grind and buy stuff you need from a shop. And got people caught onto this tactic and it looks like Ubisoft stopped using it. Or at least I didn't see any experience bars in Watch Dogs Legion. Same thing happened to Wolfenstein Youngblood. It also got its own RPG system that no one asked for. I think that Wolfenstein is a great shooter that doesn't really need any change to its basic gameplay mechanics. All these new RPG elements did was spread out runtime and add, you guessed it, grind. In Youngblood you play as daughters of BJ, and since they are not as strong as their father, in order to increase their skill, they need to level up. And they do that, literally. Now by shooting enemies and completing missions you gain experience points that transfer into levels with which you can buy new skills and unlock weapon upgrades. You know, this could work in normal single player game, and like I said, I don't mind levels as long as they are just focused on your character. What Youngblood did, however, is that it used RPG systems to basically level gate you out of doing missions. Unless you are a certain level, you don't stand a chance against enemies, but as soon as you reach their level, voila, you're suddenly good enough to kill them. With the way this game is set up, you are forced to grind same 4 levels over and over again until you have enough experience to advance into another story mission. That is all thanks to the bullshit leveling system I mentioned before. This level gating is not fun, especially in a Wolfenstein game, which was always about fast, challenging gameplay, where only thing that matters is your skill, which is no longer the case. Here, all that matters is your level and right weapon at your disposal, since enemies now also have a health bar and armor system. Instead of, having fun by trying different strategies or not caring about that and just shooting, you now need to constantly check what armor type Nazis have, because certain weapons are better against certain types of armors, which basically forces you to use those specific weapons against specific enemies. Plus, these armor types are small on HUD, so you constantly need to squirm and look at enemy's health bar to see what weapon you are supposed to use. Why would anyone think that adding this and making Wolfenstein out of all franchises a grindy shooter was a good idea? Now, I don't have a problem with sisters having levels and unlocking new skills, but why would you put them on enemies in a skill-based FPS? Like, that takes out any sort of skill out of question. High level enemies are impossible to defeat, and instead of giving me a challenge, you only gave me a headache from all the grind I needed to do. And once again, if you remove this RPG nonsense altogether, nothing would be lost. I would have preferred if Youngblood was a short, sweet FPS spin-off of main series. Oh, and it also features monetization. Now, I don't mind experiments, as long as they are well thought out, meaningful, and don't break any WHO regulations. But what Bethesda and Ubisoft did here was a fail. If you want to make your games more RPG-like and take these systems from looter shooters, you also need to build your game around it. Both Youngblood and New Dawn suffer from not changing their core mechanics to complement RPG elements. There are good games out there that use RPG systems and looter shooter mechanics, but those have been built from ground up and included them in their core gameplay instead of just tackling them on because they are popular. Games like Borderlands or Destiny. While they have many other problems, their core mechanics, centered around damage numbers and loot, are solid and part of their identity. Also, if you want to try and make your games longer, how about you actually make content for them instead of introducing useless systems that are there to just pad the runtime. And I'm sure there are other games like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, Far Cry New Dawn and Wolfenstein Youngblood out there. These are just 3 I played and had problem with. I mean, I hate this looting and leveling system in Fallout 76 as well, but I made a whole review about that game, so I'm not gonna talk about it here. I still haven't played Avengers, Breakpoint and any other games that try to introduce these mechanics. But I'm sure that if they are there and on same level as in games previously mentioned, I wouldn't like them either. My main point is this: if you want to experiment and try out new things on established franchises, make sure these new systems have a meaning, because if you don't plan on changing game's core mechanics and just try to tack on something, it usually doesn't work. I know that using a well-known brand and trying out new things with it is easier, especially if you want to get publishers on board. But you also need to think about this image for the future. Wolfenstein is not a guarantee of fun shooter anymore, just like Assassin's Creed is starting to be known for its grind and RPG systems, which wasn't the case before. I'm not saying that franchises should stay the same, they of course also need to evolve and implement new ideas, or else they become boring. But best way to do that is to build upon an already working thing and trying to improve it, instead of just slapping whatever is popular into it. So bear that in mind before you try adding street racing into next Doom. And yeah guys, I guess that's about it. I hope you enjoyed this video. This one was once again a bit shorter, but right now I'm trying to just get these essays out that I had in my mind for a long time. I know that these might not be like the most complicated videos I ever did, but like I said, it's just something that I just want to get out. There's one more essay that I'm planning to do. It might be my next video, or maybe I might do it after New Year. We'll see how it goes. And like I said, this is my last year on YouTube, so I'm just gonna be finishing up all the ideas I had. Originally there were 2 ideas that I scrapped, but I decided to, I'm just gonna do everything I wanted to originally and just finish it off just like I wanted to. So that basically means there are 6 videos left. I mean, I can just talk about which ones will it be. The first one will be a video about popularity of open world games. I was going to talk about that for like 1.5 years. Then we'll have a classic top 10 flawed New Vegas mods in 2020. I'm sure you're looking forward to that one. Then I wanted to do an Ark Survival Evolved review for a long time. Then we'll also have the 10th-year anniversary Fallout New Vegas video. I know that one will be late, but things happen and I just didn't have time to make it in October, but I already talked about it in the previous video. And then I'll also be doing a video on Rainbow Six Siege. And I'm not sure what I'll do with that game, because I don't really feel like spending hundreds hours in it so I could make a review, because I know I need to spend at least like 100 hours before I can even try to make a review, or else I will be eaten by the veterans. So I might just do something a bit different. And yeah, then the final video, that one's still a surprise, but like I said, I will let you know what video will it be before I actually start working on it. Outside of video making, I've been doing fine. I hope you're all doing well as well. Stay safe in these times. And yeah guys, I guess that's about it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did. Tell me what you think about it in the comments. Subscribe for more Fallout and other games content. And I will see you next time.